welcome to the Flossi podcast. I am back. It's been a little while since my last podcast episode because I took a bit of a hiatus from filming. If you follow me on Instagram or you get my newsletter, you'll already know why, but I'm going to very briefly touch on it, just in case there's anyone watching who doesn't have that. And yeah, just go over it very briefly, and then we're going to get to all the good fun knitting and making things, because that's what I'm excited to talk to you about today. But yeah, last year I had a bit of a tricky year. Long story short, I ended up getting assessed for and diagnosed with ADHD, which was not a complete surprise. I also got diagnosed with a generalized anxiety disorder, which was a surprise. Although it really shouldn't have been. I'm laughing now, but at the time I was like, I'm not anxious, I'm not an anxious person. And then I started taking meds for anxiety, and when I realised what it was like not to be anxious, I was like, oh. Yeah, like I said, I'm laughing now, but at the time it was a bit of a shock. But yeah, so that's basically, that happened in November, and it threw me for a bit of a loop, I'm not gonna lie, and I wasn't really wanting to talk about it at all then, and I thought, well, I'm just gonna kind of, process it all and carry on, and just, it'll be fine, as you do. And so I tried that. That didn't really work. I carried on just kind of trying to do the work I was doing, and I struggled. I'll be honest, I really struggled with it, and I think that's definitely reflected in my last podcast episode that I did for Christmas, which I really wasn't very happy with, and I'm so sorry about that one. I still wasn't able to work out what the problem was with the audio. I tried to fix it. I got weepy, not gonna lie. And then at the end of the day, I kind of had to say, clearly this isn't working what I'm trying to do. So we were coming up to Christmas, and I thought, well, my sister's coming to visit, I'll take a good week off, and then just kind of regroup a bit and take it from there. And in December I'd started taking meds for the anxiety, which honestly have been amazing and completely life-changing, but they took some getting used to, and it was kind of like that perfect storm all around the time I recorded that episode, and things just went wrong. And I took the week off and thought I'll just completely chill out and come back and hopefully be, in a slightly better place. And I very quickly realised a week was not enough, and 2 weeks wasn't enough. Shocker. I know, looking back at it now, of course it wouldn't have been. So that's why in January I sent out my newsletter and just put a little note on Instagram, just saying I was going to take a bit of time, a bit of a step back, and just completely do the bare minimum for a little while of because I had to keep working, but kind of just really strip things back, and I only focused mainly on my coffee page. It was definitely a good idea just to kind of strip everything back and take a little break, especially from filming. I was so frustrated with the editing on the last one and how the audio worked out, and I'm trying to let it go. I'm doing a very good job of it, but I'm trying to let it go. So yeah, that's basically what happened, and I took a big chunk of time off, and originally I said I'd be back at the end of January, and it turned out that wasn't long enough either. But also I was kind of in my head, kept thinking, I'll get back at it once everything's sorted, once I've got everything sorted with my meds, because I also started ADHD meds. I'll start everything back up when everything's sorted, and it's still not. I'm still trying to get used to everything. I haven't got the right balance of meds yet. It's still kind of taking things on a day-by-day basis, but that's okay. And I realised that if I kept waiting for the perfect day when I was feeling absolutely brilliant, I was going to be waiting a long time. We're just taking it a day at a time, and I'm just feeling really excited to be back talking to you. So yeah, that's basically getting you up to speed on everything going on. I probably won't be talking about the ADHD a ton on this channel, because after all, it's about knitting and making, and you know, that's what you're here for. But also, I'm not, you know, I like to share, like you to know what's going on with me, because it seems weird not to tell you things like that. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out or put them below. Like, I really don't mind at all. But yeah, again, the channel's all about making, so that's what you can continue to expect from here, making things. And Tilly's outside woofing at stuff, so I'm not really sure if she's gonna pop on, but we'll go find her later. So yeah, so you're all up to speed. That's what's been going on, and I'm just excited to be back, as I said, and hopefully, I don't know if it's going to be on a super, what's the word? Oh, that's another thing. No, I don't pronounce things right. I always forget words. ADHD. It's amazing the things I'm finding out. But yeah, I might not be on a super regular schedule, but I am back, and I want to be recording more regularly and chatting to you about fun things that I'm planning for this year and that I've got coming up. And yeah. But before we move on to the knitting, I just want to give a big shout out to my coffee members, because just mentioning the last episode and the problems with the audio, a lot of that was down to me really struggling with the editing. I was using iMovie, and I've been finding it really limiting. And thanks to the support over on my coffee page and the lovely members over there, I've been able to upgrade my editing software. So this video should be, audio-wise, good. Hopefully, I'm not going to say it's absolutely amazing, just in case I get it's like a bit gammy. But the issues should be sorted out. Plus, with this new software, I can go in and edit all of the captions and make sure everything is not just auto-generated ones from YouTube, because let's face it, some of the random things I talk about, it always comes up wrong anyway. So this way I can go in and make sure all the captions are right. And then based on that, so you should be able to see captions really easily, and then do the Google Translate. If English isn't your first language and you want to translate the captions, it should be a much more accurate translation now, because I've gone in there and made sure what the dictation that's coming out is completely correct. That makes sense. It should just be better. That's what I'm hoping. So, if you are someone who likes to use captions, or you use the translate feature, do let me know how it's working out, because this is the first time I'll be using this software. If anyone's interested, it's called Descript. So it's kind of a newish to me program, and yeah, I'm really liking it so far. So do let me know how those captions are working out for you, and yeah, on with the video, because today, I believe it or not, even though I've been missing for a while, I only have two things to show you. One's an FO, and one's a whip that I'm actually nearly finished with. But we'll get to that in a minute. First of all, check it out. I finished my tulip sweater. Over Christmas. I feel like it was over Christmas. And I didn't go anywhere to do anything, and it did sit nicely folded for me to look at downstairs in my workroom, unblocked for quite a while. And then when we were finally ready to leave the house, I was like, right, I'm blocking my tulip and I'm going to wear it out. And I've worn it a ton since. I love it. So this was stash yarn that I frogged from a sweater. Another Melody Hoffman pattern that I somehow managed to knit the size of a small child. I couldn't actually get my arm in it. So I ripped that back and frogged the yarn, and this is John Arbon Knit by Numbers that I've had forever. I actually got this yarn back at the Nottingham Yarn Expo, which I think would have been 2007. maybe the very first yarn expo that they did. So yeah, and I loved the yarn and I loved the colour, so I was really sad that it kind of sat in a bag as a jumper that I was never going to wear and I just couldn't part with it. So I was really happy to frog it and turn it to something that I've already worn a ton. I did the crop version because I knew I wanted to wear it with high-waisted pants. And also, I'm going to attempt maybe to layer it over dresses. I keep trying that. Some people do it and it just looks so cool and it's so effortless. I don't know. I try it and I kind of look like I'm standing in a hole. Does that make sense? I look like a little troll. I don't know why. It looks really weird. But I'm going to try it again. I have a dress that I think it would go really well over, so I'm going to give it a go. Maybe at some point for on Instagram or on here, I'll try and do like maybe I'll try a YouTube short, which would be of like styling it. Because that's the thing I'm terrible at. I'm really terrible at styling my knit. I tend to just end up throwing them on over jeans all the time. I really need to get a little bit more adventurous, I think. But yeah, so this is my tulip sweater. I've had this in my queue for ages to do. And I've also had this yarn for ages, so I'm just really happy to have it out of the bag and onto my body to wear lots. So the next thing that I want to show you is my one whip at the moment. I've become a very monogamous knitter. I had to think about that word. I used to be like that back in the day when I learned how to knit and I was first obsessively knitting things, and especially sweaters. I would knit one thing from finish to end and then start the next one. And over the years, I don't know, I guess because I've got work things on the go and I don't know, and especially when I was working at Making Stories, I tended to have like a Flossi work thing on the go and then a personal thing and then a kind of personal thing, but I was also wanting to knit it so I could show it because I used to do the Making Stories podcast. Actually, talking about that now is kind of funny because it's a Making Stories project that I'm going to show you. But yeah, I'm going to stop rambling and just show you. So this, I told you it was nearly done already. This is ley lines. Look, it already has sleeves and everything. I'm just finishing off the bottom. Isn't it pretty? So this is, just do that so you can see the pattern a little bit more. So this is ley lines. I'm going to show you the back because it's slightly different on the back. This is from the fall issue of 2021. This is issue 6. And when this magazine came out and I was working at Making Stories and Hannah Lisa and I were filming the podcast there, every time a new issue came out, we'd always want to be, mainly because the patterns are so stinking gorgeous, but it was just nice for us both to be knitting something to talk about in the podcast. And I ordered this yarn, which is Laxton's Sheep Soft DK, and I forget the colourway of it. It begins with an A. I'm going to put the details below so you can see, and I'll link to the website. It's gorgeous. Anyway, I ordered this yarn because I wanted my project to be ley lines to show on the podcast. And the yarn didn't turn up for a little while. Shipping to Canada can get slow. So I ended up, I knit one sock. Or I had yarn in, I was like, I want to show something. And I have sock yarn. So I was like, I'll knit the socks because I never knit socks. There's a reason I don't knit socks. It's because I'm horrible at knitting socks. Because I only ever knit one. Those were the socks that I knitted and they're gorgeous. But I knit one. It's still in a bag somewhere. I should knit the other one. It's a really nice pattern. But yeah, so I knit one sock and I kind of had to just I was like, I'll do ley lines as soon as it comes. But then there was something else to do, and then had no time at all. So I kind of shelved the yarn in my stash for quite a while. And I just never got back to it. And it was one of those things, one day I'll knit ley lines. And in January, when I decided to take a bit of time off and my brain was kind of a bit mushy, I thought I need a new project. I don't have anything new on the needles. And you'd kind of think at that point, if you're kind of feeling a little bit like, I don't know, if there's a lot going on in your brain, that I'd reach for something simpler. But I thought, I don't want to, because kind of my comfort knit are like, well, vanilla raglans and a drop sleeve, something where you don't have to overly think. But I think the key in January was I wanted something that was going to occupy my brain a little bit more, so I could kind of have a bit of time off from overanalyzing all the other things. So I wanted something a bit different that was going to be a challenge. And that's why I went for ley lines, because it's a style sweater that I've never actually knit before. I'm going to show you the picture because the photography is just gorgeous. So that's it. Hopefully you can see that. It's knit top down and it's a set-in sleeve, so I've never done that before. I've knit bottom up set-in sleeves where it's all done separately and then you seam it together. But this isn't like ever something that I'd attempted. So it felt like, you know, this is the challenge that I need. I need something that's gonna take up my brain a little bit, and it definitely did that. Even the swatching process. Let me find my swatches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 swatches before I could even start, because could I get gauge? Hell. But you know what? I didn't mind. I actually really enjoyed doing all the swatches. I think this is the first one I did and the gauge was way too small. So I'm just going to show you up close. So that's the stitch pattern that's on the front. It's a beautiful stitch pattern. So this is a slit twisted stitch, and I'm not going to try and explain how you do it actually. It's actually really intuitive, but I think I'm just going to end up confusing all of us if I try and explain. But basically what happens is you end up with travelling stitches that are slipped, so you get this beautiful kind of embossed looking fabric. It's just lovely, and it's really soothing to knit. Yeah, it's just very soothing to knit. You don't have to think too much, but it's also lovely just seeing that pattern kind of emerge. And it's actually not a complicated stitch pattern at all. It was exactly what I needed, basically. It was lovely. But I really struggled with getting gauge. And then I made a classic Claire mistake. So I did many a swatch, as you can see. And because this sweater, you start knitting flat from the top down. And so all this bit's knit flat, the top of the back, the shoulders, and then the sleeve caps all knit flat, and then the sleeves and the body are then knit in the round. So once you've found your right gauge, so I always start, when it's like that, I like to swatch flat and round to make sure I'm getting the right gauge and it's not going to switch up on me. So I like to find the gauge for knitting flat first, just because I find I don't mind knitting in the round at all, but it's a bit faffier with all the lines, so I'd rather do it flat. Plus, if you have to knit a lot of flat swatches to get gauge, it's a lot easier unraveling those at the end, because if you do that, if you want to unravel your the swatches you did for knitting in the round, you have to not cut the ties, and I find with all the looping, and it takes it so much longer to dry. I always prefer to just do the one to check my gauge if I can get away with it, rather than have to do loads of swatches in the round. So I did all these swatches flat to try and get gauge, and I ended up with, I could either get the right row gauge but the wrong stitch gauge, or vice versa, and that happens a lot. That's nothing new, and because I wasn't really thinking at the time, I did what I always do, because I tend to knit a lot of drop sleeve things or raglan shaping where you've got some wiggle room in the yoke to like adjust the length if you need to. I started knitting matching my stitch gauge, because that's what I always do. I did all the back and I was doing all the shaping for the front, and I realised I was doing it to get the shaping right and also match the right length for the under. I'm pretty sure anyone who's used to knitting more set-in sleeves, you already knew what I was going to say. If you're more experienced than me. Yeah, I couldn't do it, because to get the right amount of shaping with the right length, with my row gauge being off, it just wasn't working. So once I realised that, I ripped the entire thing back again and started all over again. But I mean, I only started in January, so think about it. I knit a bunch of swatches, and the top section I'd already knit once and then ripped it back and then knit the whole thing again. So yeah, it's been really fun and I'm nearly there with it. I watched the entire first and second series of The White Lotus while I was doing it. So this is going to forever remind me of Jennifer Coolidge being awesome. I think it was a smart idea, put a different stitch pattern on the back. Just because I think it might have looked overly busy to have the diagonal slip stitch on the back too. Plus, when you're knitting it, it's that really nice, again, it kind of keeps your brain engaged and you end up not getting bored with it at all. There is shaping through the body, but just on the front, so it creates like an A-line shaping, but just at the front of the sweater, which again, I've never had before. What's wrong? What happened? You're okay? Hello? Why's your nose so dirty? What have you been up to? Tilly's been up to no good, I can tell. Come on. Mum. Say hello to everyone, they've not seen you in ages. Whoa. Good girl. If you're new to the podcast, this is Tilly. She's a menace, beautiful and lovely. But yeah, so that's my ley lines. I'm really interested to see how the shaping actually looks. It's not something that I've done before. And I'm also resisting the urge to crop it as well. Because as you know, I have a lot of cropped sweaters. And I like them for going out in, but it's not something that I would normally wear around the house. So I'm kind of on a bit of I think this year is the year of making cozy house sweaters and cardigans that I'm going to want to throw on a chilly day over pyjamas, or honestly, once it starts getting into spring, that's when basement where I have my work area, that's when it starts getting chilly because we don't run the fire as much and there isn't as much light down there, so it gets quite chilly down there. There's a thermal unit, but that's it. So that's when I kind of need, it's not so much winter in the house, it's kind of like spring going into summer, because that's when the fire stops running and we turn the aircon on and I get pretty cold. So I think this is the year for cozy house knits and makes, and hopefully more sewing. I've been saying it for ages, I have dabbled here and there. I'd really like to get sewing again this year and try some other crafts as well. So I know it's a little bit late for showing your 2023 intentions, but since this is the first episode of 2023, I might as well share it with you. Before I go, one thing that I was starting to think, and I don't really think it would be interesting, but I was considering resurrecting my blog on my website, and I was thinking so For projects like ley lines, where I had to swatch a lot, basically when I've finished a project, kind of do a little rundown, similar to like notes you would get on Ravelry, basically talking about the swatching process, struggling with getting gauge, what I did to get gauge, things like, because I did a lot of swapping between wooden and metal needles to try and get the right gauge. And that kind of thing, with like nice FO photos and just kind of like a rundown, because people ask me sometimes about specific projects I've done. I got a lot of questions about my Merrymaker, and I'm more than happy to chat about it over on Instagram and things and answer emails. But I was thinking it might be useful for people just to have a place to go to where all those notes are there, so I can direct them to something a bit more specific than if I'm just out and about and someone's asking me a question and I'm trying to answer as well as I can remember, because I always forget, always. Yeah, I thought that would be kind of a fun thing to bring back for 2023. So let me know if you think that'll be helpful. And yeah, as always, a huge thank you for joining me here for this episode. And for Tilly, come along. I'm so glad she came and said hello. And yeah, if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. And once again, a big shout out as well to my coffee members who make filming and being able to get editing software, which hopefully is working much better. You help so much with creating this podcast and my other content and my design work. And if you don't know about my coffee page, there's a link below. I just put another video on there just last week, which was a member requested video, which was all about part of my design process. So I went through some of my garment designs and I chat about why designers may choose to knit, design something top down or bottom up, and walking people through those decisions, why each design I chose it that way. And it was actually really fun to make. I got to chat a lot about my design process, which is always fun, something that I'm always trying to improve and work on. So it was nice to revisit some of my older designs and compare why I made that decision on top down or bottom up then compared to what I do now. So if that's of interest to you, please do check it out. The link is below. And if nothing else, you get monthly updates, lovely photos of the Tilly, and it's just lovely over there. So if you're interested, do check it out. And if not, I will see you back here very soon, hopefully with a new FO to show you. Thanks again, everyone. It's so lovely to be back. And if you reached out during that time when I sent out my newsletter and my Instagram post, I'm working through replying to every single person. It's taken me a little while. A huge thank you for all your support and kind words. And I will see you soon. Thank you so much. Bye. What should we do now? Should we maybe go for a walk? Okay.